Welcome to Grace Notes, the weekly community affairs show with Town of Yorktown Supervisor Michael Grace. I'm Bruce A. Parr of Chase Media Group, and we have a very informative and important show.
Good to see you back.
Good to see me back. Where was I?
I don't know.
It's like
we haven't done this for a while.
It's like the Groucho Marx song, "Hello, I must be going." It's sort of like. But anyhow, it's always good to see you too. And we're going to talk today about a very important event on April 5th. But we always run down a couple of upcoming events in and around Yorktown. And in fact, if you're watching this before Friday night, March 21, the Yorktown Teen Center on Friday night, March 21, is sponsoring Hoops for Hope at the Cultural Center for the American Cancer Society.
So it's a Relay for Life event, or
is it? Is it a Relay for Life event?
That was for Spark.
this for Spark?
It's for Spark. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Rose Roth, by the way, does a great job, and she has a fundraiser coming up too, a gala.
That's
for
correct.
Spark for the Special Program and Resources. C, whatever the C stands. But no, I know our foundation has donated to her. You've donated.
Yes,
You've donated to her.
Rose,
Yeah,
yes.
it's a great. I know she does a great job. And then, here's something we're going to want to be at, Supervisor. March 28th, the Spaghetti Dinner fundraiser, the RCC Spaghetti Dinner fundraiser. And as soon as the calendar opens up, I'll tell you what RCC means. It's Rotary Community Corps of Keon, which is in Peekskill. Right. On John Walsh Boulevard, right where the new Holiday Inn is over there. So that's another good cause. The Rotary always does a great job. And then what else is coming up? We're going to talk about April 5th in 2 seconds. Well, we mentioned this last time. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have children that you want to enroll in the summer program of the Parks and Rec Department, the starting line is Monday, March 31. That's when registration begins, actually. So you want to keep that in mind, too. And then for those of you who go to Hilltop Hanover Farm, they're having a new volunteer orientation on Saturday, March 29th. So we're taping this show on the first day of spring, and as things warm up, the activities warm up or they heat up as well, which is nice. I think this is a winter everybody would like to quickly forget.
I'd like to get it over with eventually, anyhow.
I think eventually it will be over with. Oh, as I was saying, with all the winter closings, school closings, and delayed openings, that spring is on delayed opening too. That's what it feels like. But hopefully it'll maintain the warm weather. Anyhow, we want to welcome your guest, Tricy Cushner, who is president of Alliance for Safe Kids and does so many things in town. We'd have to spend the whole show running down your contributions, Tricy, both on behalf of ASK and your family and your husband, Dr. Michael Cushner, and your kids. So it's always nice to have you.
Thank you. It's
All you
always
do is
nice to
very,
be here.
very, very much appreciated.
Oh, yeah.
Love this town.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're really happy also to have Victoria Cicinelli, a junior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did I pronounce it right?
Yes.
Sorry, after asking you 3 times how to pronounce it. A junior at Yorktown High School.
Yep.
And maybe, Tricy, you could start by telling us. I don't think you have to tell Victoria what she's doing here.
No, I would.
But you could tell us and the audience.
I would love to tell you why Victoria is here tonight, and then obviously throughout the show she'll chime in and talk a little bit more about a project. But initially, Victoria has been helping us with Save a Life as the chairman for the safe driving program.
And by the way, I've been it must be the coffee. I've been racing through this introduction so quickly.
So
we didn't
say what
I
Save a
kept
Life
saying
was.
April 5th. So tell us first, Tricy,
Sure.
what is happening April 5th?
Okay, so on April 5th, we're having the 4th annual Save a Life event here in Yorktown. And Save a Life actually started our faith-based leaders had approached the Alliance for Safe Kids, had approached the school districts, the entire community, and just said, what can we do? We need to come together as a community, and we need to find tools for our youth and for their parents so that they can recognize when there's a crisis going on. They can recognize when there's signs that our youth need help. And that started 4 years ago, and we've continued that message and continued to work with the community. And each year we've kind of approached a different element a different area to concentrate on with our youth and with our parents. And I'll just briefly, we'll come back to each detail, but this year we've always held this event on a Sunday afternoon for just a couple of hours, and we're doing something a little bit differently this year because of the initial topic that kept coming up. We not finally learned, we've been doing it a little bit, we finally learned that we have to take 99% of our direction from what our youth are asking for. And then we go to the community and say, how do we support this? And every time we went into the high schools, they said, they're all either excited about getting their driver's license, or they've just gotten them, or they're pretty much a year or year and a half new, a year out of having that driver's license. And they've said that it's such an exciting time, and it's also such a stressful time because there's so much to learn, and they want to be confident, good drivers, and they just said that that's an area that there's no thought whatsoever that they want to know more about. Sometimes when we talk about bullying, we talk about different issues, they'd say, well, innately, I feel like I know how to treat other people. So this is, and when we know that there's additional work that can be done, but it just happened to be that with driving, every single student that came up when we did a survey, they all said 100%, I'd love to have interactive simulators. I'd love to know how to change a tire. I'd love to know, and I don't want to steal Victoria's thunder, because she actually really worked with them and said, what do you want to know? What do you want to walk away with? And she's made sure that every single thing they asked for is going to happen, because she partnered with the community, and she said, who can show them this? Who can bring this? And I'm going to definitely let you do that. So what we were able to do is that component of driving is what we do feel like will help to bring the students here. We were able to locate a company, Kramer Entertainment, who had partnered with, there's a grant coming out of the Pentagon where they said, why don't we find the best entertainment company out there that makes simulators and does rides and does all kinds of things that we already know teenagers like, and let's incorporate safe driving, let's incorporate driving under the influence of drugs, of alcohol, of texting and driving, yes, all kinds of things. And so it was, the nice part was they have not come to a single community in Westchester yet. So when we contacted them,
the first time?
they came at an amazing discount, and we're the very first community in Westchester to get. This is a group that's gone to 1,500 colleges and universities. They come in with truckloads. They have $2 million worth of simulators that they're bringing in, but they can't. They could only come on a Saturday, and they work one-on-one with the students. And we knew we had 300 participants for Save a Life. So we ended up having to make this into an amazing all-day event Saturday. For that one reason, we had to create a 7-hour event. But what we've been able to do because of that is fill in the additional workshops. So when you're not doing the simulators, you're doing amazing other workshops, including a first-time ever released local documentary that David Levin's been working on for probably a year, a little more than a year, working with Yorktown, Somers, and Mahopac youth, meaning they're just out of high school, talking to them, and they through this documentary, they tell you their experience through friends, through choices, and their experience with substance abuse. And it's not a documentary that has lots of statistics or any statistics. It doesn't. There's not a doctor.
I saw a preview. It has
Just
human interest.
Correct.
Just a personal story.
Right.
That's all it is. Over and over.
But it's very compelling. It really is. Yeah.
You grow in 35 minutes. Yeah. You absolutely care intensely about each of these, and you realize that these are youth that live right here, and it's not something that happens in another city or in another state.
But I mean, I didn't know any of the young people that I saw on the video. But I'll tell you, one of the things that comes through, apart from the raw quality of what they're saying, it's intensely personal, is how much courage it took for them to do this. I mean, it's camera close up, and they're talking about things that they've done and how they regret it, and in doing so, they're helping, countless other people who are going to be seeing this like themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love it because they came through with their points by just sitting down for hours and hours and talking to David. And you never see anything but the students, and you never hear anything but their genuine, heartfelt thoughts about the choices they've made, why they did them, how informed they were before they even made the choices. And so you absolutely grow to love them. We had the emergency room nurse last night. We had community leaders that came in last night and viewed the different stations. And the comments, it was so interesting hearing our substance abuse counselors and our emergency room nurses saying, those are the children we see every day. Yeah. Those are the ones we love, and those are the ones that are breaking our hearts. And we have to make sure that everyone hears, because these are, sometimes you say, oh, that would never be my child. That could never happen. And when you watch this, you love them. You see them as your children's friends.
And isn't that, it's interesting when you say that, isn't that probably the most dangerous attitude a parent could have, is to say, it could never be my child? You have to think almost just
prepare.
The opposite. It could be my child.
That's right.
Yeah, well, all those things, it's interesting that you say. I mean, is it that the candidness of the, and it's a very important aspect of it, because the whole issue is always clouded with a lot of shame and guilt,
Yes.
which are actually fairly useless. Right. In my experience, even listening to Chris Herron the other night. Right. The whole idea is that that's what we as a society, and we're feeling it now. We have this other application for we've successfully stigmatized these people, and so we never address the issue head on, and nor is the communication very effective. Right. Because it's all clouded in.
But it's not very clouded. The students seem to get it. It seems it's more clouded with adults. Mm-hmm. And at least I'm noticing, and I know Victoria saw some of it last night. When you hear them, you realize it's not. There's even the stigma of mental health and substance abuse. We connect those two groups constantly. Our SAMHSA is who sponsors us with our coalitions, and we constantly. We hear that that's just it's just a certain group that would lean towards substance abuse, and I think Victoria saw that you hear they're going through pain, and you see how they turn to substances. But
we should talk. Let's talk to Victoria instead of about her.
I was just going to say, I was just wondering what her feeling was. Did you feel like they were real students?
Yeah, really. I thought they really opened up a lot in that film. It was really touching, like you said, and just like, because you hear about it in school, like about other students, but it's not, you don't always know them. And I felt like through that video, I really got to know them on a personal level, because they were really comfortable just opening up in it. And it was, it was great.
And we should also
it's interesting because on from a broader view, I mean, what we really do with a lot of these people that do have problems, we easily, we dehumanize them. Yeah. And what you're really giving a testament to is that they're human.
That's your neighbor.
I always say that every geographical area, every society, every civilization always has their set of people that they end up trying to dehumanize. One of my inaugural speech, I talked a lot about what what my mother's experiences was as a German Jew, and how to be successful, you had to make the Jews less than human. You had to dehumanize them. That way you were successful. And it's interesting that we consider ourselves so enlightened. Right. And every age considers themselves the most enlightened age, but we all have our little pockets of those that we end up, putting on this side and dehumanizing, and those with, substance abuse issues or mental health issues. It's real easy for us to dehumanize them.
Absolutely.
And what I think what's extremely important about listening to these kids' stories is that it makes them, you understand, they're nothing different. When you prick them, they bleed. They're nothing different than us. And
this documentary is something that I have not come across anything. First of all, I think I love it because it is local, and it's Yorktown Somers Mayapack. But had I seen it for anywhere, for any community. You wouldn't know. Looking at it, any community can use it. You would never know who it belonged to. It just happens to be that there's not a doctor or a teacher or a statistic coming across the board. You're just getting to know them, and you're getting to know their walk, and everything they're saying is because they've experienced it, and it's gentle, and yet it hurts.
Yeah.
And when it's over, you just want to know they're okay, and that's how we should feel about each other. That's how we should approach mental health. We should approach it as if there's someone we care about, then get to care about them, and then hope they're okay. And how can we support it? And that's how we're going to get there.
Right, and the communication aspect of it's so important. Not just the communicate. You know, it's the. You know, again, we were talking before about their programs and these
Yes.
kids have been through, and I always think these kids get fed a lot of platitudes, which don't necessarily mean anything to them. They go in one ear out the other very often, and
I think it does mean something. What happens is sometimes your hurt is bigger than what your knowledge means, because that's one of the things that there's a girl who's, I think, 19, and she talks about her experience through sophomore, junior, senior, and she absolutely talks about, you know, how much she believed in Dare and how much and she said, I knew each time, and she said, but what she was trying to escape and what, you know, the pain that they're feeling. And, you know, sometimes we say, how could you be stressful? You're 16, you're 17, life is great. That part of their brain, as far as those emotions, is so much bigger than the logical part of their brain. And so they're holding all the platitudes. They're holding everything they've learned in that smaller part, and the emotions taking over. And they're trying so hard to deal with not hurting that they're willing to pass to go beyond what they know is right. And then what they kept talking about is to the point of no return. That wasn't, you know, that it took them from that red cup into smoking pot. And every one of them said that all of a sudden they couldn't come back anymore. They couldn't come back. And and it was very interesting.
And they were saying how even at one point, like, they weren't even enjoying it anymore, but they still just kept doing it because it was just an addiction at that point, and that it just, like, nothing else felt right, but it still didn't feel like good to them.
It's a
Right.
path of
You
least
only feels a little
resistance.
better
That's
at
what happens.
first, and then you only, it's like you need more and more to feel better.
Right.
And you so, that emotional part that wants to feel okay is so deep. And that's that part we keep saying how important it is to make them feel cared for. That every possible way, and that a community can do that. We have to do that, because that is what they're searching for, is you know, of course, they did talk about, even about how you think that makes you fit in, and that you now socialize, and you're at the party, and you're now the popular kid, and you're going to the football game. They use the words that you couldn't say it as a mom and have the same effect, but when you hear it from them, they keep saying that, you know, that isn't the popular part. And they said eventually it turns into a party that you're sitting in a basement where it's dark and smelly, and somebody's passed out, and another person is throwing up on themselves. And
like
he
it's
said,
not
and they said,
what you
so
see in
don't
the
think.
movies,
Yeah,
they
they
say.
said it's not. Yeah, they said those kind of parties are just in movies. It starts that way, and then before you know it, you're in that dark basement. And it was but we couldn't say that. You couldn't begin to tell your child the same story, but if they hear it from the students that walk the walk. And so that poor thing, I know we could talk about the documentary forever, and I think we're even hopefully going to have David Levin, the filmmaker, come back
at
and,
a separate time,
because the interesting component to this film, which will be brought up at Save a Life, is that it just happened to be right after Justin Salamone passed away from a heroin overdose. His mom was childhood friends with Dr. Napolitano, and Ralph had called and said, is there anything we can do to partner with the other schools, with Somers, with Mayapack, something, because he said trying to do full-on assemblies that are moving from school to school, isn't there something that we could bring into the classroom that we could use with health teachers, use with our any program, so that you have a little bit more of a one-on-one with the students. And we, that must exist. It must exist. And the more we looked, we realized, let's do this ourselves. And so what's happening tomorrow morning is the mental health General Network group, which is about 50 professionals between Yorktown and Lakeland schools, and also some community professionals. And so we'll start a little bit there, and then we're moving on to Somers and Mayapack health teachers, and we've spoken with some of their principals, and so what they're going to do is be working in the spring and the summer on a facilitator guide. They're going to use this documentary, come up with what are the talking points? How do we approach the class, because this is a completely different type of film that they would ever have in health class. Yep. And they're going to establish it and create the video and the facilitator's guide, and we're going to give it to everyone that will possibly use it, not just in the schools, but our coaches, our youth groups, our Leos, absolutely anybody that would be willing to take 35 minutes to watch and learn about how do you address substance abuse, and what is it like on a personal level. And then the part with Save a Life is that we do actually spend workshops talking about how do you recognize little signs of something that is not right in your family or outside your family, or in your circle of friends or outside your circle of friends. And then once you recognize it, what can you do and how can you get help? And that's the entire purpose of Save a Life, is that you become an ally, you become a first responder to issues with depression, with issues with teen drinking, with drugs, with eating disorders, and I have to absolutely slip back to Victoria, but that's the whole purpose of that day is creating that. And so one of those examples really has been Victoria, because she stepped up saying, here's an issue I am passionate about, and I'd feel very comfortable learning more and sharing this with my entire community. And that's how it started, and then it leaned right into Girl Scouts.
Part of it.
And we didn't mention what's your official title, Victoria?
Like the teen ambassador
yes.
Of the safe driving component of the Save a Life event.
Right.
So every Tuesday and Thursday we meet. There's about 20 to 40 of us, depending. And we meet together, and we split up into the different groups that Tricy was saying. Like, there's one about suicide, one about bullying, drug awareness, and then there's one about safe driving. I think there's 6 in all.
Self-harm body,
and then also alcohol awareness. So we each divide up into our groups, and we're given a bunch of resources from all different companies and like places that have sent us information. And we organized through it and found the stuff that we think that teens and the people that would be attending the event would be most interested to look at, and the most interested by. So and then aside from that, we kind of did our own research on the side and found that what was missing from because when a lot of the resources we got were about new drivers on the road and just what they should know and what their parents should know. And also a lot was about drunk driving and distracted driving. But we found that there wasn't a lot about just starting off and the whole process of just getting your license, because me and Tricy were talking about that even before. That process is really confusing. And before you can even be a safe driver, you need to know what the rules are when you have your permit and when you have your junior license and all that. So So I made a whole pamphlet about that and about the driver's ed program and all of that. And then we also noticed that there wasn't a lot about just what you should know, aside from just distracted driving and all of that, but like what you think you need in your car if it were ever to break down or anything and you were alone.
That's a good point. Flares and jumper cables.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Things like that.
So we have a whole pamphlet about that too that we made on our own, and it also includes how to change a tire and all that. And that's just something you can even keep in your car. And if you ever were to be alone on the side of the road and there was no help and your phone was dead or anything, you could do it on yourself. You can do it by yourself.
Right, that's really good. That's very smart.
And one of the things that Yorktown Police
could use that too.
Yes, well, that's honestly.
I'd like one of those pamphlets.
I feel like I learn a lot in my life through pamphlets that are possibly meant for my children.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I do. Yeah. And it definitely, as the second of 3 are in the process of getting a driver's license right now, I'm seeing definite, there's laws and rules that I was like, ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so it's good to know.
Yes.
I'm a bit of a motorhead, and it always drives me crazy. You really, part of the licensing procedure should be at least a primer course on
Right.
Yeah, I
auto
agree.
mechanics.
Yeah, I absolutely
because
agree. Yep.
Yes.
the
Well, we were
bottom-
saying in
Yeah,
addition to
they should
even
do
having
that.
jumper cables in the box, there's one, Victoria included even just a component on how to use the jumper cables. And, and then they reminded them they can look at YouTube, just things so they don't panic. It's like, you know what? Go to your phone, which they use for everything,
Right.
and pull up, and sure enough, they'll show you exactly what your black red is. They'll show
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
yeah,
everything. So
and-
it's
Yeah,
scary.
right.
It's very scary hearing that noise and it's very intimidating and
Right.
stressful.
But even for, I mean, every licensed driver should do it because there's, just, simple mechanical failures that can,
Right.
can create major problems that are, and your car will warn you
That's
if you know
right.
what you're listening to. And
Yeah.
you know, I hear my kids bring back my car. Well, it broke down. But I was hearing this sound for a
Yeah,
couple
oh,
of weeks.
yeah.
And
You should have told me that. But one of the important elements the Yorktown Police had mentioned and asked Victoria if she would include, it seems in the last year or two, if a teenager's being pulled over, that they've just seen an increase where they're taking off.
Whoa,
And they're,
whoa.
it's
Bad
just kind
idea.
of, well, I
Really
think,
bad
you know
idea.
what, we see I feel like every TV show, everything you see,
Yeah.
Yeah, they watch-
sometimes
well,
it's
those
kind of like,
reality
oh, you can
shows
get
they
away.
watch, yeah.
So it just kind of reminding them, and if you're hearing it from Victoria, it's completely different than hearing a mom that's saying, here's what can happen if you pull off from the police. So it's neat because their group is working on getting information like that out into our community so that you realize this is what your fine would be, and this is what would happen if you and way worse than what would happen, you could really get hurt. They've had horrible accidents happening just because someone wasn't supposed to be driving and they were.
Yep.
That it's
Yeah.
just saying, even if you don't have your license, it's better to pull over and to be respectful, and
Right, that's right.
and that's the way you're supposed to, and it just
You'd be surprised too, like as you're saying, Tricy, simply by being polite and respectful
Right.
to a law enforcement officer, he may not give you the ticket.
Right.
It's like when you start to mouth off to them or start to get defensive, not a
they
good.
want to know
They're
that you
there for-
understand.
yes,
and
it's always, for them, it's always safety
That's
first.
right.
And,
Right.
and,
It-
and it's never about, it's never, but I think, that's the theme that runs through every one of these
Correct.
topics is essentially.
Safety first.
Safety first, and it's
Good
always.
Samaritan,
Yeah.
everything is safety
And
first.
it's even with the substance abuse issues, it's getting down that spiral. A lot of it is having to confront it, and again we go back to whether it's it's embarrassment, or I'm letting my parents down, or I'm going to have
Right.
public shame, or is it going to be ridicule, or I'm going to be considered one of the they may feel a little bit like an outcast, now they're going to feel further like an outcast.
But they're alive.
Yeah, and it's really having everyone have the time out and the pause to say, look, the idea at the end of the day is we all want you to be healthy and happy.
right.
and safe, and I mean, unfortunately, if there are penalties involved in it, those
Well,
things can work out fairly
Again,
well.
not referring constantly to the documentary, but I will say at least two of them said the reason they're now recovered is because they were arrested. And like you always want to say, oh, why would you arrest them? But you have to arrest them for them to get to the
Well,
the next
with
path
this,
of getting
I mean, with
better.
the substance
Yeah.
abuse issues, it's a huge difference between being, taken in for sales rather than just for possession. And the idea is that nobody wants to let them. You want to have some this sword hanging over their head so that they have a little bit of fear about what they're doing. But
Right.
at the end of the day,
It's about their safety.
most jurisdictions have drug courts, and
Right.
the drug courts, the jails, they don't want to be filled with people that have substance abuse issues because it doesn't do them any good, doesn't do the correctional system any good. They don't get
Right.
any treatment, and the real thing is having. We heard this the other
Yes.
night at the drug
Chris
crisis in our
Herron, right.
backyard. There's prevention, and unfortunately, with all the prevention education that you get out there, there's still people are it's still a
pain, they're
vibrant.
escaping,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's still a vibrant, unfortunate business out there, illicit drugs. So it really then it turns it over to the treatment end.
Right.
And
And that's what I really meant, that the arrest was the that was the wake-up call, not necessarily going to jail, but
Which I really
being
like because,
caught.
as you know, I'm a word nerd,
Arrest.
and that's what arrest means.
Isn't that
So
interesting? To
right,
stop,
I mean that's
yeah.
literally what arrest means. So they're saying
You're correct.
being arrested their bad habits.
Yes.
It stopped it from happening.
Right.
Right.
Nope, that's absolutely correct. And what's one of the interesting components talking about our police department too, we have Lieutenant Noble and Detective Shanahan that are going to be there for the, we refer to it as the alcohol awareness breakout where you do role-playing and interactive. But we have 200 students that will go through the process and 100 parents.
So
And
are these people
students-
already registered?
Yes,
They are
Well,
registered.
we're in the process of registering.
Registering them.
We were at
Right.
Lakeland today, and we're finishing up. So we're going through Lakeland High School, Walter Panis High School, and Yorktown High School.
And we should make it clear for people watching, if you're not registered, can you show up?
No, you have to
you can't
you have
show
to
up.
pre-register, and you do
That's
that
different
on
from
the
past years.
Eventbrite, which all of the school districts have the information on the school district website. They've sent personal, wherever they could, they've sent to the
Letters or-
emails.
right,
Correct.
emails.
That I know that Lakeland had just completed that part this morning, so they'll. I think.
So this is all being done through the schools?
No, I was
Oh,
just going to say, so in
okay.
addition to that, it's been going out from the Yorktown Athletic Club, so YAC.
Right.
We've spoken probably back and forth 100 times with Shrub Oak Athletic Club, and they're in the middle of sharing the information too. It also goes through all of our civic groups, our LEOs, anybody that
Good,
can reach out to our youth and to their parents. This is a absolutely community supported process. We just dropped by Bosie's today because some of the changing the tire and the learning the how to charge the battery. We realized it would be nice to have more than one person showing. So
Yeah.
if we have some more community support with either through Bosie's and every single workshop and every section will be videotaped. So that
Very
if you
good.
can't
Excellent.
get there, a
Yeah,
lot of people
that's
have sports tournaments and you have their
Yeah,
own
sure.
performances. And this is a long day on a Saturday, and it's such an important process of feeling like you're a person that can help. And if you can be there, you should. If you can't be there, we want to make sure you know that you're gonna have access to every single workshop as if you
We
were
were
there.
also talking about putting all the pamphlets and information that we're going to be handing out at the event to be putting them all into documents online
Yeah, like
so that everyone could
PDFs
access
and-
them.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's one whole room called Exhibit Hall, and that's where, when Victoria was talking about all the separate areas that have been researched, the students have also created amazing banners for every single section, and then we have Drug Crisis in Our Backyard, we have Alateen, we have numerous community organizations that will be there with information, and we'll do the same thing with their information. We'll make sure that we copy everything and get it into a format that you can go and see every pamphlet and every document. You can find out where every meeting is, and that the whole purpose of that is that there is help out there. There are resources. So if you will just, hopefully through even just being there or watching the video, you're going to say, I don't know the resources, but I know where to find them. And that's what the Alliance for Safe Kids, we do not know how to respond except for our initial response, and then immediately we get them to community professionals and resources that they might need. And then we always say, we're here, we care. If you have other family members that need something else, but then again, what we call ourselves facilitators.
I was just gonna say,
we
facilitator,
take you and we put you where you need to be. We do not claim to have any professional training. We are community members. When I say we, it's every sector in the community. It's our town. It's our police, our businesses, our civic groups, our schools, our churches. Every single person is a part of the Alliance for Safe Kids, and that's where we reach out. Even when someone's doing an internship, and today someone was trying to find, somewhere they could visit about the military or ROTC, and you just start. All you do is say, "Let me just call. I bet we can find information." That's how a community works together,
Yes,
and that's how we show our youth that they're supported, and we show them that everybody here wants to help you in your ventures, especially your good ones.
Right, yeah.
Yes, and so I just think that's the neatest part about Save a Life is it truly is the community working together, saying, come send your youth here, send their parents here. And this is just high school age. It really is. We've tried to do it, and we do other events with middle school. It just happens to be this particular day is set at a level that you need to be, a 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grader. A lot of this information is information you're taking to college.
Right.
So even the depression, there's a whole section about depression is widely experienced in college, so that you're not caught off guard and you understand what's happening to yourself and you understand how to find help if you're feeling that way, instead of just avoiding it until you just want to go home. And so I love the way the day is coming together. I love that we have the exhibit information hall, so that and everyone, even on your on the schedule where it tells you. So when you check in, you'll pre-register. So you go, because we really do, once we can't go beyond the 300. So you'd have to pre-register. Panera's giving lunch, so you get to go right away. You order, you sign up, you pick your Panera's lunch from your menu that's there. We have Rita's Ice, that at the end, there's more simulators outside. You'll have your Rita's Ice before you leave, and you'll register. You'll show up that morning, and when you check in, you have your entire schedule. You have your badge, and it has your ticket for your lunch, so that you get what you ordered, and it has your schedule for the day and every single class where you're going to go, and and every class is interactive and role played, and you're not going to be sitting there listening to a lecture. You are right smack in the middle, because we want you to leave there feeling very confident about not just recognizing something's not right, feeling confident enough to step in appropriately, maybe if not directly, indirectly, but feeling confident that you have the knowledge to help.
So is there like an equal, not an equal exactly number, but there's a blend,
Yes.
obviously, of parents and students?
When you register, you can only register as you can go in and register through the Lakeland district, through the Yorktown district, or as a parent. So we stop at 100 parents. So there's more students than parents.
Right.
But actually, we've had a lot of adults that are volunteering. So
Right.
that doesn't count as a
Registrant.
registrant.
Right.
And so that part, we probably have 50 or 60 adult volunteers.
That's great.
And we definitely always need. We even have. We have senior citizens that are going to be additional facilitators. We have professional facilitators in each workshop, but we also wanted one. We have a quick little pre-post survey. So when you come in, you have 3 questions. So when you leave, and so you'll have another community member that cares about you, just saying, here's a survey if you care to take it. And they just realize the whole day is filled with community members that care about them. We have 8th graders that are getting hours for their
Community service.
for community service, but they're getting hours. The 8th graders are for their confirmation, and so we have a whole group that stepped right up, and so you're going to see 8th graders there that are helping to get everybody to the right place and check them in, and all the way down to 88-year-olds. So it's just kind of neat. And then speaking of community service, for the high school. And I guess the adults as well, they will receive a certificate for the entire workshop, and that workshop certifies them as a Save a Life graduate of the day. But it also counts as 7 hours of community service. But you can use that letter for your resume. We can certainly help you if you want to do additional work, which that has been it's kind of like poor Victoria. Anyone who walks in with an interest to help other people, we just don't let go of you. And this gives us 300 more individuals that would, it'd be dreamy if they're like Victoria, but and we feel like each year those 300 are going to bring 300 more, and we're going to end up with a community. And this is probably a good time to mention the safer communities that we just attended. There's very similar to what we're doing, Save a Life. The Rob Astorino and the Department of Mental Health and the Westchester Jewish Community Services, they partnered and they created, it appears to be a national training, but they brought it to Westchester, and they're looking for their first community to come in and offer it's an 8-hour workshop just for adults, but it's adults who are around the youth. They're looking for coaches and youth leaders, and they want to train you for probably 2 4-hour days, but on recognizing youth mental health issues, so that you recognize them exactly like Save a Life. How do I intervene? What is the right way to do it? Just to get it, they call it mental health CPR, just to get them to the next step, just to get to the person that can absolutely help. But it's very similar to what we're talking about. But they will again meet with you come right to our community and do that training. And I just think so they're going to come and probably talk for about 20 minutes on what they'd like to do in Yorktown, and then we'll see if we can get. They're coming. They're coming. We're hoping. We're trying to actually get Rob Astorino to come and tell us about it. But definitely, they've already sent some. We have 2 from Yorktown that have already been trained, and they will. What they'll do is set up something for Yorktown if we have enough interest. So I just think, isn't that amazing? Yeah. So in addition to the Youth Save a Life, we're also now looking, and we're talking about the stigma of mental health. It's being erased every day. I mean, it's just, we're knocking, we're chipping at it and chipping at it and chipping at it. And we're going to start to realize that, like you said, we are all humans and we all take care of each other. And if we know how to help, then it's going to be.
I think that's you know what, to me, that's the, it's a small step, but it's the biggest one to make. It really is. And the thing is that we don't, because it's, unfortunately, you don't like to say it, but it's true. It's prevalent in our communities. And especially, we often don't like to think of our community as suffering from these types of issues. But
every community is. And if you're not comfortable, the only reason usually that people are uncomfortable or defensive is because they're not sure how to respond to it. And if we teach our youth and we share it with adults, here's how you recognize something and here's how you respond to it. And then they're equipped and they feel strong. They have the tools to do what they need to, instead of maybe point a finger or laugh or walk away. Instead, you just become a part of the solution, and I can't imagine that kind of change around here. It would be so wonderful.
Right, I know, and one of the more important things is just to constantly have this dialogue.
Right.
And people getting tired of hearing it, but the bottom line, you have to have the dialogue, and it's not. You don't want to have the dialogue when the problem's visited under your roof, because at that point in time, you're really probably dealing with a crisis situation. So it is important, but I think a very important ingredient is the student population, because I had a very interesting conversation with two girls also from Yorktown not too long ago, and it's really fascinating to get their perspective on things. What we feel is communication with them is just speaking a different language. And so it's really it's fascinating to get from the students' point of view as to what they need to to actually understand. We're all speaking English, but we have completely different.
Everything
language.
Has to be student driven and community supported. At least in what we do, we need them to drive us to support them the right way.
Because I think because. I mean, as adults, we have a certain perspective about things, and we've completely forgotten about what it was like to be 15 and struggling with this, and
and being liked,
and searching for having an identity.